Hello, welcome to Hope She Gardens and Homestead. This time of year, I spend a lot of time out here in this room working with my seeds, the plants that I've overwintered, and looking outside and watching the change of the season and getting excited about being able to go outside and work. We're hearing a lot lately about this Green New Deal, and do we need a Green New Deal? Yes. Is it the one the government's proposing? No. That proposal is based out of fear. Telling us that in 12 years, if we don't take these drastic measures, we're all doomed. We're all dead. Well, if that were the case, and we only had 12 years, we might as well just hang it up, because even what they're proposing, we couldn't do in 12 years. So there's that. Are there things that we can do? Oh, most definitely. Can we turn things around? Definitely, without a doubt. And any true scientist, any true biologist, any true believer in the planet will tell you that there's a lot that we can do, and we can turn this thing around, and it is not hopeless. And there are people who just deal with the ground, who believe that we can turn this thing totally and completely around. Now, they're not even talking about, the sun and the rain and the plants and the trees and all these other things that come into fact. They're just dealing with the dirt, or the ocean even. You know, our ocean plays a large part in grabbing up the carbon from the air. Now, is it being overtaxed? Yes, it is. And what can we do about that? You know, we feel like as individuals that there's not really a whole lot that we can do, but there is so much that we can do. There's so much that people are doing that are destructive to the ground and to the planet and to the air. One of the things that we can do as individuals on a small scale is plant a tree and grow a garden. Those are things that we can do on a small scale. Now, if it's a large farm, you know, they go and they till up their ground, which is killing all the fungi and all the stuff that's down in the soil that's been working so hard to bring life to the plants. Then they just go out and they kill it, which is one of the reasons why the food that we get doesn't have any nutrition in it anymore. But on top of that, it's destroying the topsoil, and that is a big problem with the worldwide. Another is if the people that go in, they cut down trees. Not opposed to cutting down trees. Trees need it sometimes, and sometimes we need the trees. So, but be selective. Don't go out and just strip the ground. Be selective of the trees and that we have. And now people say, but the whole premise behind the Green New Deal is the carbon footprint. And, you know, does that mean we need to get rid of all the cows because they fart too much? No. Do they need to be taken better care of? Yes. They're jammed in these little areas where they hardly have room to move. Sometimes it's inside. Now, sometimes they're in pens outside, but they hardly have room to move. Cows should be out grazing on grass, roaming. That's how cows should be raised. Chickens, they do the same thing with chickens. They have them so cramped in, they stomp each other to death, and they aren't roaming outside. Chickens should be free range. They should be out digging in the ground. They should be getting out the insects and the worms and all these different things. We don't do those things anymore. And so those are definitely things that could be changed. Is government going to change that? We have seen that our government is not good at implementing programs. Individuals are going to change that. When we stop buying meat that comes from places like that, there won't be that big a need for it. When we stop buying cows or chickens for food from these places, there won't be a need for it. Eggs. come from those places. There won't be a need for it. Find places where you can get free range chickens and eggs. If you can't raise them yourself, find places where you can get grass-fed beef that we know have been taken care of through their lifestyle. There's a lot of places out there doing that. Will you pay a little more for it? Yeah, you will, but it will be worth it, and the health benefits that you get, it'll be worth it, and what it does for the planet. I think that people eat a little bit too much meat. We don't eat meat every day. We definitely don't eat it every meal, and we don't eat it every day. So meat's really kind of a treat that you give yourself every now and then. It has its benefits, yes it does, but it shouldn't be the staple of your life. I'm going to make this real simple because I'm not an expert at this, although I have done quite a bit of research and study on this. But it has to be simple for me to understand, so I want to present it to you simply. Our bodies are made up of 18% carbon. Carbon is where we get our structure for our bodies. It is the structure for anything that grows. So we need carbon. We don't want to completely strip carbon out of the air. It all starts with the sun and photosynthesis. It all starts with that. Our plants, what they do, and our trees, what they do is they will grab the CO2 from the air. They'll grab the H2O. They bring it into their bodies, and the photosynthesis starts to work. They take in the carbon, they release the oxygen into the air. That's why your forest air is so clean and pure and smells so wonderful, is because the trees and the plants are releasing all that oxygen into the air. They're taking in that carbon, and that carbon will go to work inside their structure, and it'll make little strains of sugars, and the sugars will feed the plants, it'll feed the soil, and then there's a whole lot of other processes that go on after that. Our oceans take in the carbon and clean it and reproduce oxygen. So nature is full of ways, natural ways, that will cleanse our air, will take in the excess carbon, but it needs it to survive. We need it to survive. We're just over polluting our areas with it. Now, do I think that we need to do away with cars? No, I don't. I enjoy my car, especially when I have to go on long trips. We're so split apart nowadays and living in other cities and other ends of the state or country that we wouldn't see family if it wasn't for cars, trains, and planes. Great movie. I would never see my children if it wasn't for those, because I sure couldn't walk to go see them. My grandbabies, I couldn't walk to go see them. I have to take a car. And so cars are a good thing. Do I think we use them way too much? Yeah, we do. And we need to learn how to get around, walk anywhere that you can. Ride a bike if you're able. Some people are not able to do either one of those, and they desperately need vehicles. And that's why I say we don't need to get rid of them. Do I think we need to rip all the planes out of the sky? No, I do not. I think planes really serve a purpose, and they do keep our country and other nations united. In fact, the very people that want to take our planes away at least once a week, are riding in a plane instead of taking the train alternative that they could take, because it saves them time. My time's important too. They drive big SUVs because they feel more comfortable and secure. Well, my comfort and security is important too. They don't recycle because it's too difficult. It's not easy for me either. But in saying that, recycling, anything that you recycle, anything you do that's good takes effort. And recycling does take an effort. But anything you can keep out of the landfill, that's going to help our planet. Any way you can cut back on traveling, that's going to help the planet. I can give you one surefire way to not have to get in your car. and that is to not have to go to the grocery store as often as we do. How are we going to do that? By growing our food and learning to eat what we grow. And we don't have to start with this big, huge garden. We can start very small. I talk a lot about back in the day. You know, back in the day, we were more connected than we were. We were like a tribe. And everybody knew you very deeply, and they knew your story, and they most often knew your parents and your grandparents even, and maybe even further back than that. But they all knew you, where you came from, and they knew you deeply, and because of that, we knew ourselves deeply. We had a deep connection to the soil because we grew our food. And also, you know, back then, you could look at a tree and say, this is what type of tree it is. You knew if it had fruit, if it had nut, you knew if it was a nitrogen fixer, you knew what it did for your soil. We can point out a tree nowadays, but very seldom can we say what that tree's for. We knew, here, I'm listening to a bird right now outside my window. You know, that's one of the strongest memories that I have of my daddy. He could sit outside and a bird could whistle. He knew what type of bird that was, and he could whistle back to that bird, and the bird would whistle to him. We've lost that. But that's one of my greatest memories of my daddy, is his whistling and his talking to the birds, as I used to say. And we can't do that anymore. They knew what type of bird it was. They knew what the song, they could identify it by the song, even if they couldn't see it. They knew when those birds were going to be in the area. They knew what bugs those birds ate. They knew where those bugs were located on the land. And they knew what grew around those areas where those bugs were. And they knew what the soil smelled like in those areas where it grew. They knew what plants were good for medicine and how to make that medicine from the plants. We don't know those things anymore. Now, when I say we, I don't mean everybody watching this, but the community as a whole. We don't know these things anymore. And we wonder, is there anything that I can do just by myself? Don't devalue small things that individuals can do. Every small thing that we do can be multiplied by everyone else that's around us that's doing small things. Now, your neighbor on either side may not be doing the things that you're doing, but I guarantee you there are people that are, because there is a big awakening that's going on right now. We realize that there are things that have changed that we have lost and that we want to get back. There's a lifestyle that's been lost that we want to regain. We know that our government is not the answer for everything, and individuals have to do it. Yeah, remember, there was an old commercial out when I was a kid, so you know it's old. When I was a kid, there was a commercial that was out, and it was like, she told two friends, and she told two friends, and before you knew it, the screen was filled up with people because they just started by telling two people. So that's our goal. Tell two people what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how you're doing it. Educate people. That is really the number one way that we're going to make a change. First by doing it, and then by educating others around you why you're doing what you're doing, how you're doing it. And then second, share with your neighbors. You know, you're growing certain things and you'll have an abundance, and they may have an abundance of other things. Barter with each other for what each other has. That's going to build community, big time build community. And another thing, while you're bartering and you're sharing, learn from them, because they're going to be doing things different from what you're doing, and maybe doing the same thing you're doing, but in a slightly different way. So share. We wonder if, you know, our composting makes a difference. Putting our organic matter back into the soil, does that make a difference? The recycling that we do, can it possibly make a difference? Well, the answer is yes. Every little thing that we do can make a big difference, especially if we share, we educate, and we build a community of people who are doing the same thing. Another thing that we can do is learn how to process the food that we grow so that we have it throughout the year. Whether it's through canning or dehydrating or freezing. A lot of people are getting into freeze drying now. I haven't done that yet. I would like to do that. It is a little expensive, so it's something I'll have to save up for. But learn how to preserve the food that you grow. That's another way of being self-sustainable, not having to go to the grocery store to get your food, and it'll be a whole lot healthier for you. I guarantee it. Where you can gather the water in between your rows. Mulch plays a big part in that. Mulch will hold in water. I showed you last year when we were getting some of the heavy rains, there's areas of my yard that don't have mulch, and we were standing in water. It was pulling up everywhere. And then I walked out into my garden and it was not like that. It had been soaking in that rain, and the wood chips, and all that organic matter was holding in that water, so that when after the rain had stopped and things were starting to dry out, that water was then released out into my plants. And we need to learn how to sequester water, because water is just as important as sunshine. So what can we do? We can plant trees. We can grow a garden. We can sequester water. We can share with others. We can educate others. And don't be afraid to make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. Even people who have been growing for years, we make mistakes. So don't be afraid to make mistakes. And don't let that stop you from trying again. Experiment. Experiment and make gardening fun. Grow things in different areas in different ways and see what's possible, because there's a world of possibilities out there. So let's become a community again, a community of growers and communities of caring for the earth and community of teachers. As I said, we're all in this together. And we can make a difference one person at a time. And that's how we're going to change things in this world. Whatever the problem is, one person at a time, sharing why, how, and what you can do. So get out there and garden, plant a tree, and thank you for joining me. If you haven't subscribed already, please do. I hope that I've given you some information and some food for thought, because that's the whole purpose of everything that I do, is to inform and to make you think.